talk about this devil fruit today. Or at least possibly some of the capabilities or implications that could be used with it. So this is the Mane Mane no Mi, or the clone fruit, and it is used, of course, more recently in the timeline by Bon Clay, or Bantham of the Wild, or, Bantham, Mr. 2, whatever you want to refer to him as. Most of them work. They all apply to the same person. And in the past, it was used by Higurashi. Kurozumi Higurashi. Higurashi, excuse me. In regards to impersonating Odin and Sukiyake and Momonosuke and just other people in general. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But this is the perler bead fruit version that I have made. I think it turned out well. Part of it got a little more melted than I wanted, but I like it. I reorganized a bunch of my devil fruits recently, all the perler bead ones recently, and now they're just in a nice little divided 3-drawer stack thing here, with the paramecias in one, the zones in the other, and the logias in another. So nice little thing, which my mom bought, which I appreciate. So, I will say this now, as I guess a bit of a warning, because some of the things that I will talk about a little bit later in the video might delve into, I guess, spoiler, or not spoiler, but like trigger warning stuff a little bit. But this is mostly done, most of this video is going to be a humorous take on this, but I will touch on some stuff that may not be as humorous to some people, and that is understandable. Going into this, so the thing that started this, or the reason that I'm doing this video, is there was something that rolled through my Facebook feed that was a One Piece theory. And I think it was the first time I've seen this specific one. And then I looked it up, and it was on like Reddit as something with like people commenting on it. And it is one of the various theories that people have come up with for who Yamato's mother is. Now, I did a whole video where I talked about the possibilities of who Yamato's mother could be in regards to, like, Gloriosa was one of them, depending on stuff like Stussy, or I guess Buckingham Stussy for the original was a possibility at some point in time. There were other ones that were possibilities for who Yamato's mother could be. And I went through a bunch of those in that other video, and then I said like what my take of like who Yamato's mother could be. To be fair, we still haven't gotten that answer yet. We may not find out until much later, or Oda will just reveal it in a Viver card that she was just some random woman or whatever. But that doesn't quite seem to fit with like Kaido's personality, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be like pointing out with this. So the theory is from Pew, or Pew Piece over on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And it got put up on Reddit as well based on his post. So the theory basically is that Higurashi is Yamato's mother. And the basis for this is that Kaido arrived in Wano before 28 years ago and conspired with Higurashi. Interestingly, Yamato is also 28 years old. That means Higurashi might be Yamato's mother. And of course, initially on the cover of that, it's like, Higurashi is an old frickin' lady, so maybe not. And the answer to this is that she used the Mane Mane no Mi that she had, that Higurashi used this to make herself younger. Therefore giving her, the visage of like Buckingham Stussy from when she was on the Rocks Pirates crew. When her and Kaido would have known each other back then. And made herself look like that to make her physically younger. And that she would have, done this and then, take your pick for wherever you want to go with that. So I wanted to go over some things for just basic information for context here. So Higurashi, at the age of her death 20 years ago, was 85 years old. So if she was still alive today, she would be, still alive currently in the story, she would be 105. She, of course, had the Mane Mane no Mi, the clone fruit, which does allow you to physically turn into someone else for a certain period of time. I did look it up because I was like double checking to see if there had been any statement as to how long the duration is that this effect will last. And it's simply just until you touch your face with the other hand after you've changed into that person. Is like how long the effect will just kind of remain there, that you will look like this person. Okay. And that Yamato is, yes, 28 years old. And meaning that Higurashi would have been 77 when Yamato was born. And some of the things that I did want to point out with this, first of all, yes, Kaido did seem to know Higurashi since his time on the Rocks Pirates. There's the theory that Higurashi and Senimaru may have been on the Rocks Pirates, as in, like, they left Wano after everything happened with Orochi's grandfather, and they left and headed off into the world, and then ended up on the Rocks Pirates crew, where they would have met Kaido and Big Mom and Stussy and Shiki and Whitebeard and all the other ones that were on the crew, including Gloriosa and whatever many others. Would have met them, or at the very least been aware of them if they hadn't been on the crew itself. But clearly at some point in time, Higurashi managed to get herself close enough to A, copy Shiki's face, because we see that she does that. B, we see that she also manages to copy the face of who we assume is supposed to be like a young Buckingham Stussy, young Miss Balking from, back on her Rocks Pirates days, prior to, having Weevil as her child in whatever shape or form that may be, and then allowing herself to be cloned. But, so there's some of that stuff there. And that Higurashi was somehow acquainted with Kaido. And he knew her because later on, when we get the little flashback for Kaido, when he's talking to Higurashi about when she's like giving him this idea of like, well, you could come to Wano and build weapons there, and in exchange you just have to make it that you support Orochi as ruler, type of a thing. And that was kind of basically what happened. Kaido agreed, went to Wano, and set up shop on Onigashima and started to rule over basically anything outside of the flower capital with fear. Slowly taking over the country with, Orochi sitting in the lap of luxury in the flower capital at the center of Wano with everything that he would desire, and anybody who's willing to kiss up to him, and then also kiss up to Kaido in the process. Kaido and Kaido's forces. And then sometime in that time frame, Yamato was born. Now, it is kind of hinted that about 25 years ago, it was about when Kaido really set up shop in Wano. Based on what we know, because it's like 20 years ago was when the battle with Odin is, and Kaido states that I've just finished building my castle, and that took like 5 years to do. So that implies that he's been been on Onigashima for about 5 years at that point in time. And to be fair, parts of that castle could have easily still been lived in while the rest of it was being built and everything else like that. Plus, we just see Kaido in a cave a lot, so he may have just liked living in the cave. I don't know. It's like, I'll live in the cave, and then you can build everything else, and then I'll come into the castle when it's done. Okay, sure. Yes, sir. King off to the side. Why does he like being in the cave? Really, sir, do you have to stay in the cave so much? It's my cave. Leave me alone. I'm going to drink. Also, where's my child? And actually the Oni princess, because Yamato was referred to as a girl at that point in time. It's like, yeah, the little Oni princess is currently off playing somewhere. I still swear I want there to be some conversation between Yamato and King. And given the fact that Yamato has now arrived at Udon Prison, or at least should have arrived at Udon Prison by the time this video goes up, there is a very high chance that if King and Queen are still alive, that they are still being held there if they were not taken by Aramaki. And whatever condition they may be in, I still want to see Yamato have a conversation with King. But going into some bits here, and in regards to like the capabilities of what the Mane Mane no Mi are. So the implication from what the theory says, what Pew says, is that, and I'm not saying that this can't be correct, I'm just giving some rebuttals as to why I don't think it's correct. Again, I could be wrong, and yeah, Oda may just be like, yeah, sure, Higurashi is the Yamato's mother, sure, whatever, yeah, Mane Mane no Mi, just here, whatever. So there's other implications with that, but the main thing, based on the information that we know about the Mane Mane no Mi for what it is capable of, is that, yes, it does allow you to, shift from one visage of someone to someone else, to someone else, someone else, to your own face, to combination of faces, like what we see, Bon Clay do with, like, his nose on, Usopp's nose on his face type of a thing. By the way, I wish I had Bon Clay's self-confidence. I wish I did. I wish I had his self-confidence. But what ends up happening is, like, we see this be demonstrated when they meet him on the Going Merry, and then we see it demonstrated several times throughout Alabasta, with him shifting into Cobra and into Usopp and into Nami during his fight with Sanji. And then later on, we see him do the same thing in the Baroque Works cover story. He shifts his face around a little bit for certain ones to pretend to be Marines. And then he does the same thing when he is in Impel Down and is in trying to help Luffy with, getting, it impersonates Nami, impersonates Zoro. One of those might be just filler, but impersonates one or both of them. And then also impersonates Luffy at one point in time during that, and impersonates Hannibal, being the big one that he impersonates, in order to get Luffy to where he can hopefully get Luffy to where Ivankov is, which he succeeds, so there's that. And then, of course, pretending to be Magellan as well. So we've seen Bon Clay be able to shift into so many of these other different, characters and everything else like that, with shifting through the visages, and he pretends to, he copies Zoro and Usopp and not Robin, and Nami and Chopper, and all of them. He does not copy, Sanji or Vivi, which is part of the thing for why they have the X's on their arms. But there is the whole question of, okay, while he may be able to stay in this form indefinitely, and the fact, or the user of this devil fruit, Higurashi or Bon Clay or whoever else in the past has used the devil fruit, however long they could stay in that visage depends on how often they make sure they don't touch their other hand to their face to, to change it to a different one or to deactivate it. Which, if you're pregnant, could be very dangerous for the baby. So that's something there. And the fact that one of the things is that if Higurashi did try to do this, Higurashi would then have to stay in the visage of, young Stussy or whatever other female that she is pretending to be for the full 9 months. She can't go out of it at all. Not at all. Otherwise, it would result in, all of her, internal organs and everything else like that are required for childbirth, ovaries and everything else, would then revert to her actual age, which is then not compatible with having a child. To be fair, there are lots of women or not lots of women, but there are some women who have had children much later in life, past what would generally be considered menopause. In the One Piece world, we have Big Mom, who had her youngest child, Charlotte Ainana, when she was 60, 8 years ago. So there's that. And then in our world, there are women who have used fertility treatments like IVF and other such things in order to have a child much later on in life. Although I don't think I would want to have a baby when I'm in my like 60s or 70s or I don't think there was any in their 80s, but like 60s and 70s. Just because it's like by the time that kid is old enough to do, old enough to go out on their own, you're going to be really freaking old. So that would be part of that. But it's just the whole thing of like, this miraculous conception type of a thing, which, yeah, given this time of year, I will point out Jesus, for, Mary, the mother of Jesus. But then I will also point out Elizabeth, who is the mother of, in the Bible, is the mother of John the Baptist, who is actually Jesus's cousin, because Elizabeth and Mary are related. There's Elizabeth, who is, she's advanced age or old, which depending on what variation you want to go with in the Bible could mean she's 40 or she's 50 or she's 60. And then also in the Bible you have Sarah, who is the wife of Abraham, who had like a child at like 90 something years old and everything. So there's that. So there's there's instances, but those are all like in the Bible. And I know there's probably other religions out there and other mythologies out there that have been like, oh yes, there was some woman of like an advanced age who had a child for reasons because she was so devout to the gods and the gods blessed her or whatever. So there's that. So, and there are some women of older age, of 50s, 60s, who used natural treatments, not IVF treatments, but natural treatments in order to conceive and have a child. So there's that, and there's just other cases where it's like it has happened, but it is so rare of an instance that it has happened at all. There's like world records, and there's probably like, but they had this, and they used this, and they had this. In the One Piece world, well, we're not exactly sure exactly how far their version of like is their level of medicine is compared to like modern medicine. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a version of like IVF treatments in the One Piece world, but that just seems like a very, to a degree, depending on the circumstances, a very risky thing to do for like Higurashi to do that. At 77, attempting to have physical intimacy with Kaido, which is where we're getting into certain things there. So that's involved. Technically, yes, IVF could be involved with that, but Queen wasn't on the crew yet. Yeah, Queen was not on the crew yet. Queen wasn't on the crew until like 21 years ago or something like that. Like, not too long before the battle with Odin and the Scabbards. Given the other information that we've learned about Queen recently, Queen would not have been around yet. So that kind of eliminates that concept. And I don't think anybody in Wano would particularly have the knowledge to do anything along the lines of in vitro. I don't think that seems like a void century technology that would have survived well in Wano. Yes, there are different types of like natural or herbal remedies and techniques and things like that that could be used in order to help, a woman of, older age be able to conceive. That's not unheard of. And those might be things that they would have had in Wano at the time. But that doesn't seem like something that Kaido would want to have to put in that level of work to have a child. And then going into the fact that some of the other things that we see, because like there's really only two instances where we see Kaido and Higurashi interact, and one is in this flashback, and then the other one is during the battle between Odin and Kaido, when Higurashi then pretends to be Momonosuke, leading to Oden being distracted and Kaido then being able to attack him. And Kaido, of course, would not have been happy, clearly was not happy about that, because then he just kills Higurashi anyway. And to a degree, I don't think Kaido would have been quite as readily wanting to end the life of the mother of his child at that point in time, even for that such of a thing. And so that's kind of like a negative in that regard for like going with that theory. And the other thing is, when it comes to Kaido, there is this whole thing of, okay, before I go back to that, I wanted to finish up the thing with the Mane Mane no Mi. The things that I wanted to go into for the weaknesses of the Mane Mane no Mi are, the main weaknesses that we are aware of is that while you can physically change into the person, you do not gain that person's knowledge or fighting techniques or mannerisms or strength. Meaning that even though Bon Clay could turn himself into Luffy, he can't stretch the way Luffy can stretch. He could not access any of that type of ability at that point in time. Now, if there was like an awakened version of, if he managed to like awaken the Mane Mane no Mi, there's the possibility that that would be part of the awakening setup of it, but I'm not sure. Now, if Bon Clay copied Luffy while Luffy was in his Sun God form, in the Nika form, that would be a different thing. But that's not the case. That's not quite the case. And then there is like the question of, if you have the Mane Mane no Mi, and you like physically, you impersonate someone who is pregnant, are you now pregnant? Like if Bon Clay managed to find someone who is pregnant, find a woman in the One Piece world who is pregnant, and copy her visage, would he then be pregnant? And it's just like, I don't know. And it also depends on like how deep this ability goes for how much it changes your body. I mean, like, he could change into Chopper in his Brain Point form. We saw that. But then Bantam or Bon Clay is also, he can change into Nami, and we see him change into other people, but he doesn't have their strength. That's the other thing, is that the strength is not transferable. He can't just copy Zoro's face and now he's as strong as Zoro, or copy Whitebeard and now he's as strong as Whitebeard, or anything like that. It's not like he can copy Magellan and now he's physically as strong as Magellan. He can't do that. He still has his own level of strength that he has access to, but he can't access someone else's level of strength. And it's also just, it physically changes you into the other person, but that's only kind of like a surface level thing. I don't think it's going to physically change everything else about you in regards to how, like if you copy someone who has cancer, do you now have cancer? That would suck, but do you now have cancer? As long as you're fit, as long as you look like that person, do you now have cancer? And like same thing, like that type of a thing. Like, yeah, if he copied Luffy now, he'd have like Luffy's scars and everything else like that, but that doesn't mean the same thing. All of that type of a thing. So it's like, those are just some of the things where it's like, well, that doesn't quite fit with like then trying to be pregnant for 9 months, and it would be plus conceiving it, plus being pregnant for that amount of time. And Higurashi would not be able to shift out of that form at all. Meaning she can't impersonate anybody else in that time frame. Meaning she can't go and attempt to impersonate Sukeyake in that same time frame if it happens to be that is needed. She can't go and infiltrate somewhere else pretending to be someone else at that point in time. To be fair, that time frame, Kaido or Oden is not on the island, but it's like she wouldn't be able to then do something to like throw off the scent from any of the daimyo or something like that. And that would just be a whole type of thing. And if Kaido knew that someone was pregnant, that a woman was pregnant with his child, I think he would want to keep that woman at least somewhat safe until the baby was born. So there's like that whole concept there. So he wouldn't want her to leave, probably. But it's also, again, I don't think she's his type. She's a lot fucking older than him. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing when it comes to a relationship, but I don't think that's Kaido's type. And the other thing with that is, I don't think it's something where it would have been Kaido was tricked into it, or coerced into it, or trapped into it, or something like that, and getting into the more risque concept here, risque thing here, where it is kind of that question of like, yeah, Kaido likes to get drunk. Point in place, if you get drunk, really frickin' drunk, the way we've seen Kaido get, certain appendages on the male body don't always work as well as they should, given certain circumstances because of the alcohol. So there's that. Also, you would have to get Kaido really drunk for him to not notice who he's sleeping with. Other reason, I don't remember what number I'm on, but it's also, Kaido would know. Kaido's not that stupid. He's not stupid necessarily anyway. He's pig-headed and bull-headed at times, but he's not stupid. And he would notice something is up. Between all of his hockey abilities and everything, he would notice something is up. And since we don't know too much about Kaido's proclivities in bed, he may not be that much of a gentle lover, in all honesty. So that would be kind of hard to deal with for someone of Higurashi's age. So there's that as well. As I said, little section here that's not necessarily the safest thing, but I wanted to point out those reasons there. And yeah, Kaido doesn't seem like the type who would take kindly to being tricked in that regard. Yeah, that would have ended in Higurashi being dead a lot quicker if she attempted that. And yeah, I don't think Kaido would particularly enjoy that to a degree. So take that what you will. This is a little bit more risque than I tend to do, but I wanted to point those things out because they are applicable in this regard. Also, in regards to this, there is the whole thing of, again, as much as we don't know about Kaido's past, we got like basically the basic layout of it in like those flashback bits of chapter, and then the episode that kind of expanded on it a little bit at the end of Wano during the last bit of his fight with Luffy and everything. We got bits that show younger Kaido and everything, and we saw, the flashback where he meets, sees Higurashi and everything, and she offers him the chance to come to Wano and everything, which, yes, is all well and good, and of course it does result in, him going to Wano and everything, but the other part of that is, we don't see baby Yamato at that point in time, although given the time frame of everything, Yamato possibly would have to have been alive at that point in time, but we're not sure. Or at the very least, already conceived by then, since we don't know the exact dates for a lot of this stuff. We know Yamato's birthday, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I think it's closer to the end of the year, but I could be wrong. Because I think by technicality, Momonosuke is, older than Yamato in regards to, via a few months or something. Again, I don't remember off the top of my head. But there's this whole thing with, I wanted to point that out in, the very various inconsistencies that would apply if this was the case for one of Yamato's mothers. Yamato mother possibility here. So I wanted to at least point that out for how a lot of those inconsistencies would have to fall. But that's what I have for this. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you're having a good holiday season so far. Bye.